good evening and welcome to Call to Arms, and thank you for answering the call, and welcome to another episode of Battlecry. This is episode 13 and it is going to be 40k themed tonight because we are reviewing the new Astra Militarum codex. It's the Guard, Imperial Guard, and it's time for their, hopefully for their time in the sun. They've been kind of much maligned for a wee while now, so hoping to get the new filth out of this new codex. And I've got just the man for the job to help me discuss it. We've got Mr. Ryan Cook. Good evening, Ryan.
Hi, Rosen.
And so from what I hear around these parts, you're pretty much Mr. Guard, and you do pretty well with them on a tournament level. And I believe there was a wee event that you went to just before the release of the new books. You went old book and went 4-1. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I took the old Guard to the Coventry GT. It's a tale of two parts. I'll probably explain. If we're going to talk about the way that I built that list, was I actually went down for the 3-day event but got absolutely trashed by Space Marines for 3 games in a row. That was basically how I had to build the list for that event. Was I'm going to try and hope that I don't get Marines, and then in later games I might not play them. But no, I got Marines every single game. So I dropped to the 2-day event, and then I luckily got the run. So if it was going to be Guard taking a GT, it was going to be that, because I was fortunate enough to get Knights again, and then Death Guard, Drukhari, and then the final Thousand Sons, which were all very good matchups for the list that I'd taken, which was tanks and lots of infantry with mortars. So the way that kind of list worked was, it's kind of a meme that it was a codex tank commander. So I took all 4, being the 3 normal tank commanders and Pask. And the way that worked was, if you were a Chaos Space Marine, I would wait for the opportunity to use the Relic of Lost Cadia, the Relic of Skill, maybe the Relic of Shame. It wasn't the most fun relic for people to endure. But that's how I would deal with hard targets. But then if I was playing like Harlequins, Drukhari, or that, I could really just afford to sit back and just hammer them with mortars and put really cheap infantry on the objectives and just be like, I'll run out of stuff after you run out of stuff. That's the way it was. But one of the big things I like about this book is it fixes one of the reasons I ended up losing the final round against Thousand Sons. And that is now that tanks can shoot whilst being tagged, because that was the backbreaker for this list, was if you could get touched.
Of course, yeah, and that was kind of always kind of Guards' Achilles' heel, as it were. I remember I was a Guard player for quite some time, from 7th into 8th. Didn't really dabble much of them into 9th. I think they were sold by then, but I used to love running Cadia, just tank heavy, tank commanders, troops for screens, and then just blasting opponents off the table. And the Relic of Lost Cadia was amazing in terms of going into chaos. That won me quite a few games of just being able to just take things off. But yeah, that was always the thing. It was, as soon as something gets into those tanks and tags them, doesn't even need to kill them, it just tags them, and that's it. They're kind of done. That's changed now. There was we'd seen a change in the 9th edition that vehicles could still shoot into units they were tagged with, but not with blast. So am I right in saying now that your Lehman Russes, their turrets can target things that they are, so if they are tagged in combat, their turrets can still target things that they are not locked in combat with?
Yeah, looking at the turret weapon rule, it just says that if there's models within engagement range of enemy units, it can still target and resolve attacks against enemy units that are not within engagement range of it with weapons with this ability. So that'll be the main guns. Mm-hmm. And the reason that Guard needed this is because the majority of the tank weapons have the blast keyword, and whilst they brought the shoot into combat mechanic in, it just essentially didn't exist for Guard. So that's probably something. It was something I'd probably like to see on the majority of tank type vehicles across the game at some point, because I think kind of makes sense that they should be able to.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense, and yeah, it's quite good because I think sometimes maybe we do see new rules being introduced in codexes, which then get rolled out like game wide maybe in the next edition, and I know that we kind of maybe are on the brink of 10th within the next year or so. So yeah, maybe we could see that kind of rule just kind of given out to all factions for their tanks. That'd be pretty cool. So before we go any further, I mean, I'm already loving the tank chat, mate. This is music to my ears. Before we go any further, what I'd like to do is just to say thanks to viewers. I think we've got a few people in chat already. We've got Scott May. Hello, Scott. He says, I'm really glad for that change as a tank guard player. Absolutely, yeah, ideal. Just kind of echoing your words there, Ryan, that that's kind of ideal for that, and making sure your tanks aren't just useless as soon as they get tagged up. But we'll say thanks to all the viewers, and please do comment down below, and if you've got any questions, please fire them at us as well, and any questions for Ryan, because as I say, he's the real guard expert here. And then also just to thank the subscribers for the channel. We've got tabletopminis.co.uk. Oh, sorry, not subscribers, the sponsors. And yeah, so let's get down and dirty, Ryan. Let's get into it. We are talking about Astra Militarum, brand new 9th edition codex. We've already kind of talked about one change. If you were to just kind of summarise what has changed as a kind of a broad general overview, what would you say about this new book?
So I would say it's a lot faster in some regards. I'd say it's a complete. It's different in the way that some things the roles have completely reversed in a way, whereas like you started off with slow vehicles and incredibly fast infantry. Well, the infantry's not so fast now. It hits a bit harder, but the tanks, they're a lot faster, a lot more mobile. They're not as prone to just being turned off. So you can be more aggressive with your vehicles now. So you can afford to put tough things on it, like forward for objectives. But one of the big changes I think that I'm still kind of getting my head around is how orders has changed now. It's much more a proactive thing rather than a reactive thing. So you really got to plan ahead in order to get the maximum benefit out of your orders, whereas you could sort of make up your plan as you went along at first. Don't know if I froze now.
No, sounds fine. So yeah, that's a really good point. Like the fact that you've got, it was a wee bit strange that Guard had some of the fastest infantry in the game, because they could advance, move, and then they had that order for move, which they could then advance and move again. And I've got these guards just like shooting off, going potentially 24 inches. And then and their OBSEC obviously just capping objectives and stuff like that. That was hilarious. But yeah, so talk to me about the changes to orders then, Ryan. So I know that it was always you had to tee them up at the start of the shooting phase. Is that still the same thing here?
So now orders have done the command phase. So for years, the command phase to me has just been the gain a CP phase. But now it actually does something, and that's when you'll issue all your orders. And the way orders work now is similar to the way that they worked in the balanced data slate. When you issue an order, a unit within 6 inches of an officer can receive it, and it splashes to the relevant units that can receive them, being platoon units receiving regimental orders, or squadron vehicles receiving mechanised orders, or the commissars, they can give out prefectus orders, and they can go in abhumans as well. So there's a little bit of overlap with some of the orders. Some of the vehicles, in fact, the Sentinels can actually receive platoon orders as well, because they have the keyword, which is quite cool. So they're a very flexible vehicle. I think what else to go for it. One big change for orders though is officers can't issue the same order more than once. You have to use different officers to issue the same order again. And there is a kind of I would say that's one thing that's quite a big change for the new orders thing, because a lot of the time you'd be like, especially before the splashing orders, is you'd be like, right, these guys are going to take aim, these guys are going to take aim, these guys are going to take aim, but you can't do that now. So fair enough, you can splash, but you need to make sure that you've lined your units up ready to receive the relevant orders, and it's
Yeah, no, that's really good. Good information, because it's quite cool. I didn't realise that Sentinels could get orders now, which is pretty cool. I know they were kind of left out in the last book. Felt like just kind of a very much nothing unit. But I know before the stream there we were having a wee chat about how you think that there could be quite a bit of play in Sentinels, which is really cool. I like the fact that you could give your abhumans, so things like Ogren and Bulgren, like they can receive orders as well, which is which is quite cool. And yeah, important to note. What was that, sorry?
One of the big things about Ogren, which was the Bulgren, more importantly, is because of the prefectus orders now, you can actually give them an objective secured, and that's been one of the big things about Guard, is they can't hold primary objectives, and Bulgren are pretty tough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I saw. I was watching a stream. I can't remember who. I think it possibly was Tabletop Titans, and it was Chaos Space Marines into Guard, and he chucked a unit of possessed into some Bulgren. Didn't do anything really at all. I don't think even. I think maybe he didn't even kill a Bulgren. They had already received the OBSEC order, and so therefore that was the objective was there. So that's what I was like. Oh, that's huge. We actually have a unit now that can take an objective and keep it. Because if you stick in, because we used to have OBSEC tanks, so you stick an OBSEC tank on a point, it's either just going to get like taken out or tagged in combat, and that's no good. You put like some infantry on a point, they're just going to get wiped out. But now you can actually put tough things on a point and keep it, which is key obviously to winning the game. So that's really cool.
So what was what we went on now?
So that's orders. So I think we've kind of dealt with that quite good. So on that, what would you say are your go-to orders? We've already kind of discussed the OBSEC one. What are your other ones that you find yourself using pretty much every single command phase? This is what I am thinking of sticking out into my units.
So for different units, I would say, you're going to get a lot more mileage out of some of the orders than the other orders. So I know a lot of people don't like the way first rank fire, second rank fire has changed, from it being that your guns would become rapid fire 2 to now they become heavy 3. But the way I see it is that 24 inches you're getting 3 shots as opposed to 2. Fair enough, you're taking the -1 to hit, but a lot of the times when we talk about the relics, you're probably going to be taking a relic that like mitigates that, so that you don't actually suffer that penalty. So I actually quite rate the first rank, second rank fire. Take aim, you'll find that probably quite a lot, especially if armor contempt goes away. I think that could be something that becomes used quite a lot and quite frequently, because it's going to give your guardsmen +1 to hit, but also +1 AP. And the first pip of AP I find quite a lot is the most important one, which is why armor contempt's been pretty difficult for AP1 weapons. Fixed bayonets, that you're probably only going to be using that on Rough Riders if you take them, but Lord Solar, he can give that to Bulgren, which is very important because they only have AP1 mobs, and taking them to AP2 and hitting on 2s is pretty transformative for them to be in a pretty viable combat unit. Take cover, I've never really found that it's a necessary thing, because when you're putting guardsmen out there, if you're putting guardsmen in line of sight, you're expecting them to die, so it's kind of a wasted order, I feel. Move, still a very important order. Now the movement is essentially guaranteed. You get a +2 to your movement, and should you choose to advance, which is the important thing here, should you choose, you get a flat 6 extra move, so you could go a total of 14 inches on the advance, which is unfortunately the lowest possible rolls you could get for the old move, but it's still very important. It's still fast guardsman. There's another interesting one, suppression fire. So what it is you have to take your entire unit that you've ordered, and you have to put all their attacks into the same enemy unit. And if you get 5 hits or more, the enemy suffers -1 to hit. I've not found this being an order that I've really wanted to use, but that's one of the core things with orders right now is you have a lot less orders in your lists, I tend to find, unless you are running Lord Solar, so you can struggle to really use the more flexibility kind of niche orders. When it comes to Prefectus orders, there's a couple of good ones here. Starting off with them from the top, so you've got forwards for the Emperor, so until the end of your shooting phase, if you advance, you can count stationary or if you normal moved. This can work well with a stratagem in the book that allows you to double shoot with infantry if you count as stationary. You've got your Duke Mana, which allows you to advance or fall back and still do actions, which is quite important for getting early out there. So if Special Orders stays as a secondary for the Guard in the new book, that requires you to do actions in no man's land, but typically quite a lot of the time you can't really reach those midfield objectives straight away unless you do advance. So this allows you to advance, hopefully get there, and then still do the action. Get back in the fight.
It's really powerful. I like that a lot. Yeah.
You've got to get back in the fight, so that's that allows you just to shoot or charge in a turn in which you'd fell back. So you've got to pick one or the other. At all costs, gives your unit OBSEC, or if it already has it, it's double OBSEC. Pretty important for giving those units like Bulgrin, etc. Objective secured. Show them steel, show them contempt, +1 leadership, and should you take a mortal wound on a 5-up, you do not lose it. I think that's a bit of a wasted order. I don't really see it coming up much.
Mm-hmm.
You'd rather Bulgrin probably had OBSEC than a 5-up to mortals, to be honest, I think. Yep. Remain vigilant. It's a very powerful order, but I've never seen the need for it, because if you're going to be... So what it is it gives you a 12-inch no deep strike aura. It allows you to count as set to defend or held steady, even if you're not in cover terrain. I don't really see the need for this unless you're really taken into it with a relic from the relics that allows you to issue an order on your opponent's turn. Because you're going to be screening with your sentinels, your infantry, and if they're going to put something important into some infantry, hopefully you've set it up in such a way that you've got a lot of things to pick up whatever's going into the infantry, the way I see it. So
yep.
That's the way it is. And then mechanised orders. So a couple of these are pretty good. So you've got Pound Into Dust. So what it does, it doubles the amount of models the enemy count as having for the purposes of blast. And considering the vast majority of guns on these tanks are blast, it's a good way to kind of get a lot of shots. So as soon as they've got 6 or more models, you're just getting max shots on your guns, which is pretty good. But a lot of the time, I feel when it comes to tanks, you'll be using the Executioner tank, which is the one that does mortal wounds, because it's a plasma weapon. So I feel that you'll be the reroll ones order instead. Full Throttle, that's had a change, because that was essentially move for vehicles. But now what it is you add 2 to your movement, and if you advance, you count as stationary. So
I like that.
It allows you to still obviously shoot. Blitz them, it's a combat order for vehicles, but despite being able to shoot in combat, you're still taking a -1 to hit, and you just don't want to be tagged,
No.
even though you could maybe fight a little bit. So basically what it gives you is +1 to your charge rolls, and if you successfully make a charge, you can select one enemy unit with engagement range, and you roll 1d6, adding 1 if you have the Dozer Blade keyword. On your tanks, the Dozer Blade's free, so you'll probably be taking that. And on a 4-up, you do D3 mortal wounds, but do you really want a tank to be taking -1 a hit for D3 mortal wounds? Probably not.
Yeah, pretty lackluster that one, yeah.
Shock and Awe, that gives your vehicles obsec. Very important if you're running the Armoured Superiority regiment trait, as your tanks could be 5 models, your sentinels 3 models. And if you're running, let's score a 3 sentinels, that's 9 models that are obsec. Now, the mechanized orders do have one of the cooler kind of techie orders in pinning fire. What it is essentially it's like the infantry order, but what it is you shoot, you select one enemy infantry unit, and when you shoot it, as long as you score 5 hits on it, they remove 2 inches from their move characteristics. So it's a good way to kind of control where the enemy's going to go. If you're playing against Death Guard or something like that, and they've got like a 5-inch move on the Terminators, putting them down to 3 inches, that's pretty bad. If they have to advance to get somewhere, they're not going to be able to do much more that turn. And another round of shooting for guard is very important when it's a primary shooting faction.
Yeah. That sounds really, that's really cool. No, I like that, and I like that you've got such a wide swathe of options for your orders, and then you can obviously just kind of pick and choose to whatever you fancy. Am I right in saying that a unit can't receive more than 1 order in a turn?
So the way it works, when a unit is selected to be affected by an order, a unit can only be only affected by 1 order at a time.
Right.
If this unit is affected by an order, when it's selected to be affected by another order, the new order immediately replaces the old one. So this gives you some quite interesting interactions, because one of the rules for orders is actually that when an officer disembarks from a transport, he can immediately issue an order. But when he does that, he doesn't get to splash his orders, because he doesn't have regimental tactics applied to him, which is just what splashing orders is. So what you could do is you could be like, I have my Rough Riders here. I'm going to move them with move, but I'm not going to advance. I'm just going to make them move 14 inches. And then later in that turn, you've maybe got a Chimera near them, and then the officer jumps out, and he's like, you know what, you guys can fix bayonets now, and you've basically gave yourself +2 to charge almost, and you're still hitting on 2s with the +1 AP. So there's ways to get extra movement and then still tech into the extra damage.
Oh, cool! I really like that. No, and that's good to know as well. That you can do little combos like that. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. I like that. Okay, we've got a couple of questions in chat here. We've got Marshall Croc. Good evening, Marshall. We've got he's asking, are you adapting your list to the new book, or do you want to start from a completely blank slate with the new book? What's your experience with new lists?
So currently right now I'm trying to fit more close combat into the list, because the game's kind of, I would say probably the most powerful phase is the combat phase, because it gives you more access to movement. But so far I'm not too sure if I think that the Rough Riders are the way. I think they're a unit that might be overhyped. And I really think that once Lord Solar's been released and he's allowed to be in events, I think Bulgren will really come back as a really solid unit for the Guard, because obviously when Lord Solar issues orders, he's allowed to order things that can't normally be ordered, such as characters and the like. He can also order auxiliaries. So you can give your Bulgren fixed bayonets, which they usually wouldn't be allowed to be given, and then that takes them to hitting on 2s with an AP2 maul. And everyone knows that AP1 just doesn't exist anymore. Like, it just, it's not worth having. And that's a pretty transformative buff for them, and it makes them quite strong. And especially if we go into the new mission pack, and if there's no Armour of Contempt, I think they're going to be pretty scary at 4 attacks each.
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah. No, I like that. So would you say that you're maybe taking just the classic list that you were running, which was, a kind of a variety of different tanks for your kind of your shooting output, infantry for just board presence, but then trying to put more of your close combat threats like Bulgren into that list.
Well, I definitely take a lot less infantry now, as in guardsmen. So I was, well, I suppose when you include Kasserkin, I'm probably still at roughly the same amount of models, which is probably about. So I'm running about, in my last list I was running 90 like infantry models, 60 being guardsmen, and then 30 Kasserkin, because I've got some of the old models, and clearly isn't just because they're super strong. But like back when I was making my lists for the 8th book, it was I take 100 guardsmen minimum, like minimum 100 guardsmen. I take my triple mortars. I didn't take any other indirect like the manticores and such, because I didn't have the CP for it, and Cadians were a CP heavy army, and plus the armor contempt just made manticores, which were, in my opinion, the only viable indirect. Like, I didn't rate the basilisk at all. It made them kind of useless, because it'd be AP0 if they were in cover.
Yeah.
But now that Guard are expected to not have the indirect exemption, I don't rate indirect in any way, shape or form, so I probably won't be running any indirect. And I've always ran indirect, always had lots of mortars, maybe a couple of manticores, but I wouldn't run it right now. You're hitting on 4s, if you take a -1 hit, you're hitting on 5s, and then if you're going through dents, that's you on 6s, no chance. So I think unless Guard get an indirect exemption, it's pretty much dead in the water, the indirect, unless you're running the regiment trait that allows you to get +1 to hit. But even then, I still don't think it's worth it.
Yeah, no, that's fair comments there. Perfect. And I know that we are going to have a chat kind of at the end to kind of wrap up, and we are just going to talk through your most recent list, the one that you've been getting a few reps on with the new book as well. You said you've had about 4 games with the list, and you've done pretty well with it. So we're going to have a kind of a chat about that. Can probably need at the end as well. So keep an eye out for that, Marshall, as well. Scott May is also, he's saying he has a box of Bulgrins, but he's just got to figure out how to build them. Now, am I right in saying the Bulgrins have got 2 options for their shields? It's either slab shield or brute shield. Is that right?
Yeah. So the way I kind of ran my Bulgrin was I'd usually take half and half shields, but if you were running odd numbers, I would have an extra slab for the 2-up save, because I do think it's good to have the invulnerable saves in there. Just that, should it be the better save, you can initially start by trying to take it on those shields, or if you're just getting sprayed with bolters, just take it on the 2-up, because your Bulgrin have a 4-up save regardless, and if you're getting shot by AP0 and that, you can still get a 3-up save on them in cover because they've got their normal 4-up save from their Bulgrin vests. I'd go a kind of slightly to the more on the slab, but keep a couple of the brute shields in there.
Yeah. So if you were going for a unit of 6 of these boys, maybe 4 slabs, 2 brutes.
Yeah, something like that. I'd probably run 3 and 4. Too.
Cool. Yeah, no, ideal, perfect. So hopefully that gives Scott a wee bit of know how he's going to run it.
A good thing to notice with the shields is you can just dry fit them and they pop out. You don't have to glue them in. Mine's are all dry fit in and they just pop out, and you can just put a wee bit of blue tack in. It's what I do with my turrets as well.
Perfect, ideal. Yeah, and it saves you having to magnetise as well, which I know can be a bit a hassle, but no, ideal, perfect. Okay, so we've had a chat about some changes into the new book, what your kind of feelings are with the new book. We've had a chat about some orders. Let's talk about some regimental doctrines, because we have kind of alluded to that a wee bit, but we haven't kind of got into the nitty gritty on that. So I'm just going to scroll up to my regimental doctrines. Here we are here. Now the interesting thing is now, from the old book, we used to have actual regiments, didn't we? We used to have like Catachan, Cadian, all that stuff. Now it's just everything gets us like a stock base regimental doctrine, which is born soldiers, I believe. And then if you want something else, you have to take out of that and then choose the new thing. So talk me through what's born soldiers, and do you think there's ever any time that you would want to drop that for something else?
So, the Born Soldiers doctrine, the way to think of it is the way to think of the doctrines in this book is you can pick two, apart from two of them, which count as two. They're all-consuming in nature, kind of way, like that's probably the best way to describe it. So Born Soldiers is your units gain the Born Soldiers keyword, which is relevant for a stratagem. And then officers in the doctrine have the following ability: Born Soldiers. So whilst the platoon unit is within 6 inches of this model, it can use the officer's leadership instead of their own. It's okay. It's not great, but it's there. The important thing is each time that a model of this doctrine makes a ranged attack, an unmodified hit roll of a 6 automatically wounds the target. And the even more important part of that is that actually counts as a 6 to wound, which tees off things like stratagems and weapon abilities, which we'll get onto when we talk about Cassigan later on, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
So, coming for, when you look at the other regiment doctrines, another couple, I think a lot of them are quite good in the sense that you can take them in a Born Soldiers detachment with things such as tank aces, and then Cassigan can take them because they're allowed to take additional doctrines. But the other ones that I quite like are Armoured Superiority, and essentially this what it does is it gives you a keyword relevant for stratagems, and Sentinels to count as 3 models, Titanics to count as 10, and all other vehicle models count as 5. The important thing to remember with this is obviously you can give OBSEC to vehicles now pretty easily, so you can actually start using these things that are actually durable to hold objectives and have some weight on them, instead of one model tank that can't shoot like we could in the old book. If we took a spearhead. And then another one I quite like is Elite Sharpshooters. So this is just a nice simple one. It gives you the Elite Sharpshooters keyword, which allows you to use a stratagem, and it just gives you a reroll a hit roll. Pretty good for guns like the Vanquisher cannon. It's nice, simple and easy, and you'll always get to use it. Swift as the Wind, that's quite a good one. So everyone knows that mobility is an important part of the game. So what Swift as the Wind does is it gives you +1 to your movement on infantry and artillery units, but everyone else gets +2. So pretty good for your Rough Riders, which are already fast at 12 inches, so they can go up to 14. Your Lehman Russes are now moving 12 inches, so pretty rapid. You get to add 1 to your charge rolls. It's good, yeah. Do we want to be charging? Maybe not too much. Your Rough Riders do.
Yeah, exactly. And your Bilgrim, as you kind of said as well. So
the unfortunate thing about the Bilgrim aren't actually they don't get the regimental keyword, because they're auxiliary. That's the reason that it's quite interesting that Lord Solar can actually issue orders to them, because he obviously isn't part of the regiment system. He's the Lord Solar, so he just gets to do what he wants, kind of thing.
Of course, yeah.
But he can tell them what to do.
I like that. That's cool.
To give +1 to charge affected Bilgrim, that would be really, really interesting. But there is a couple of unfortunate sleepers in this. So you've got things like Parade Drill, which are pretty awful. Just makes your last guns heavy too if you stand still. Do you want to be standing still? You can just get an additional shot on top of that by moving and then just having first rank, second rank fire. So I don't know what they thought when they were making that one.
I know. I know that sometimes with these books it's just like they have to write something, so they're like, we'll just do this, even though it's never going to get taken ever. But it's like, yeah, let's do it because it's narrative and it's and it kind of suits that kind of a thing. But no, that's not ideal. So
Well,
that's yeah, yeah. That sounds like so. We've got personally me. I think the Born Soldiers is so strong. It's essentially it's Hammer of the Emperor, isn't it? It's what they got through the balanced data slate, but they've essentially kept into their own codex.
yeah,
But yeah,
it's
that
actually
yeah, the sixes to hit auto winding is just nice, and especially with mass volume of fire, which is what Guard has a lot of access to, and we're also going to talk about a unit kind of a wee bit later on that we can been chatting about. We've been kind of saying it quite a bit. The Kasserkin, how that is probably going to be one of the most kind of lethal combos in the book. So why don't we go on and chat about that just now then? So I'd like to dive into. Now we're not going to be able to do every single unit because the book is massive, and we want to try and keep this to to a decent time, I'm sure. But let's just talk about some of the key kind of strong units you think are in the book, and what are the kind of the key combos. For me and my kind of limited knowledge of the book, the ones that I've heard about are the Kasserkin Bomb with the Lord Solar for the full rerolls, which just seems nuts. And then obviously the strat that they can pop off as well for doing mortals into units, along with their weight of fire, quite high AP, and the fact that they're auto winding on sixes to hit as well. Things like I know that is it Lord Solar, he can give orders to the new tank that we've got as well, the Rogel Dawn tank.
yeah. So Lord Solar, he knows all three types of orders. So he knows the platoon, the squadron, and the Perfectus orders. So he can issue orders to everyone, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So what also is important about Lord Solar is he's got a command phase ability where he can give full rerolls to one unit. So he gives them full rerolls to hit if they're just any unit. But if they're a core unit, they also get full rerolls to wound as well. If they have where is it again? If they're core, a character, or a battle tank.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty good that.
That sounds very that sounds very nasty potentially. Right, so yeah, talk to me about how this synergizes then with the Kasserkin.
So there's a couple of working parts to the Kasserkin. So what you do is you have a Kasserkin squad, and what you do is you make sure that they just take all hotshot variety weapons, be that the hotshot Kassakins, the hotshot pistol, or the hotshot volley gun. And what it is you give that squad a relic called the Barbican's Key, and essentially what this is a turn one deep strike in a way, like Veil of Darkness. So you start on the board, and then in your movement phase you can just pick them up and place them where you want, 9 inches away from the enemy. And then what it is at the start of your command phase, you'll have given them the full rerolls to hit and wound. And then when you go to shoot the enemy, you'll spend 2 stratagems minimum, being the ingrained precision, which is your 6s to auto wound now tees off on 5s to hit. So you've now doubled the amount of dice you're getting auto wounds on. And you'll then use overcharged last cells, which is 6s to hit. 6s to wound count as have a mortal wound in addition. So as you can see now, you can see with all the rerolls, you're starting to farm out all those mortal wounds. And what you will have probably done is you would have given them first rank, second rank fire for more volume of shots. And then you can get even more damage out of them by giving them another stratagem for experienced eye to give them additional AP to make the guns AP free. Or you could have gave them take aim. They would have less shots, but they'd have an additional bit of AP and hit on 2s. And then what you do with this, essentially what you do with this one is you're not looking to nuke one unit. What you're looking to do is just maul a couple of units. So you'll split your squad into 3 different targets. And then what you'll do is, because the way the stratagem works is they've tried to cap it on 6 mortal wounds per unit. But because it's per unit and not per enemy unit and not just from that activation, you can just splash mortal wounds on everyone. So basically you just choose 3 enemy units. It's just like, here's 6 mortal wounds, and then probably like 6 saves on top of that, like AP free. Enjoy. And when you can, you can theoretically pull down like 3 Custodes Dreadnoughts from 1 activation,
Ooh.
you can see it's a bit problematic.
Yeah.
But fortunately, I think it's probably the only problematic interaction in this book. I know people are scared of the Death Strike, but really, I don't think it's that bad. It's this thing that's pretty mean.
Yeah, it certainly is the thing that as soon as the new book came out, this was something that was I heard about, and it was just like, I think I was asking someone, what's the filth? I think I was actually asking Innes potentially, and he was just like, yeah, it's a blob of Kasserkin. Yeah, you give them the teleport thing, you give them the rerolls before they teleport away. You spend these 2 strats on them, and then like you just, yeah, as you say, you're you're picking multiple different units, so either maybe 2 or 3 as you're saying, and you just, yep, you'll splash mortals, and you'll also give them a hell of a lot of AP3 saves to make on top of that as well, and it can be pretty damaging for a unit that's only what, so is that a 10 block of Kasserkin you're using for that?
100 points and 1 CP for a relic, and then how many CP? Well, a minimum of 2 CP is what you're going to spend. So you put 3 CP into them theoretically. But if you're taking Lord Solar, you've been refunded a CP at the start of the game because you'll have not used his ability to change your secondaries. Because why would you do that? But yeah, like there is significant CP investment into it, but it is in its current way, it's pretty problematic, and you're not making any friends. I don't think if you do that.
No. So potentially maybe some either a FAQ or something in the future might tone this down. Possibly, maybe remove core from Kasserkin. I know that's something that GW like to do. If there's some sort of interaction that's working that is making something too strong because of the core keyword, they just take that away, or something like that. Maybe they make it less mortals rather than 6. They only make it 3, something like that. I don't know. But yeah, it does seem to be pretty strong out the gate. What are some other good units that you see competitive players running, and also like some other good combos? What's your thoughts?
So when it comes to the command squad, I think the command squad you take is the Cadian command squad.
Okay.
Or the regular command squad. Yeah, you might not be able to put special weapons in them, but they have the Cadian keyword, which allows you to get transhuman, because what's a book these days if it doesn't have transhuman in it? So it's called Cadia Stands, but
well, I mean, it was, what was it? The planet fell before the guard did, so surely they're just as tough as nails, right?
They're just tough as nails. So yeah, but the Cadian command squad's got quite an interesting build to it. It might not be the strongest one, but what you can do with the command squad is make it pretty tanky. So because it's got the Cadian keyword, you can use Cadia Stands. And what you do is you give the squad itself, you give it the relic, which allows you to have a 4-up invulnerable save, and then you can tee it off with the Trans Hitman spell from the Primaris Psyker, and yeah, you've got your Trans Hitman, your Transhuman, you've got your 4-up invulnerable save. Then the medic in the squad gives you a 5-up feel no pain, and then what you've got in the squad as well is you've either got an Ogren Bodyguard or Nork Daydog. And they make the squad toughness 5. They give you -1 damage, and then they've got 6 or 7 wounds. They're -1 damage. So if you're chucking a big squad of Sangard at them, there's 3 points of halving the dice. Then there's a 5-up feel no pain. You've already taken half the damage off straight away because of the -1 damage. And then because you've got the medic in the squad, if Nork even dies, you just pick him back up in the next turn for 1 CP. And because you'll be running Lord Solar, you can make the command squad OBSEC, so it's something to think about.
That's cool. No, I like that, and that's quite a good powerful layering of buffs. As you say, it's trans hit, transhuman for the wounds, and then yeah, just makes them nice and tanky, and with the ablative wounds, and also resin back the Ogren as well. Okay, cool, I like that. And yeah, what was interesting as well is, even though we've lost a lot of the regiments from the old book, we still have things like Cadian, Katachan, stuff like that, but they have their own individual little squads now, right?
They do, and some have been treated better than others. It's not hard to tell that the Cadians are probably the star of the book. Maybe because they've got new models, I don't know. So if you look at the regular infantry squad to the Cadian shock troops, so a regular infantry squad, they're the exact same stats across the board, apart from an infantry squad can take a heavy weapon. They're only allowed to take one special weapon, but it's a heavy weapon. But then you look at the Cadian shock troops, and they can take 2 special weapons, of which they can have 2 plasma guns, because that's what you'll be taking, I would imagine. And then they've also got the shock troops rule, so whenever they make a ranged attack with a last gun or a last pistol, an unmodified hit roll of a 6 scores an additional hit. So you've got exploding hits in your last guns, so you're getting more power from the last guns over the regular infantry squad, just because, and they're the same point. So I don't see why you would ever want to take a regular infantry squad. I just don't see it. Death Corps of Krieg, they're quite an interesting, different way to run guardsmen. So they're essentially the same. They can have 3 special weapons, but they all have to be different. But if you want to take a plasma gun, you can't have a Voxcaster, which I don't see why you would ever not want to run a Voxcaster, because it just makes giving out orders that much easier. But they also have the baby transhuman thing where they can't be wounded on a 1 or a 2. But I don't really ever see that being much of a case, really. I don't think baby transhuman really saves a guard squad ever. They can they've got a medic that they can buy, where they basically change the first failed save into damage 0, but you don't take like a high-powered hit like a Baden does and turn that to 0 when it's a guardsman squad. You've just been told to make like 20 saves from bolters at AP2. Yay, I've saved one of them.
Exactly.
So I don't think the Death Corps of Krieg are worth the points. Katachan jungle fighters have just been done so dirty.
Oh, it's a shame.
So they're more expensive than the Cadian shock troops, but what they get for their additional cost is that they can only take flamers, and in combat they score 1 additional hit on a 6. It's like you get 1 attack. And there's no way in this book to give yourself additional attacks. It's not like a book where you could get potentially 3 attacks from the guardsmen. And they're also not strength 4 anymore. They're only strength 3, so they've just been gutted.
Wow. Just classic GW. The thing that was good in the last book, you're just going to absolutely rinse in this book, clearly. Oh, such a shame for Katachans.
Yeah, Katachan players will be saying that their guys are Katachan shock troop. Will not be jungle fighter.
Yeah, the Cadians. I promise you, just really ripped Cadians. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
But yeah.
What about one thing I wanted to ask was, what about this new lass? This Ursa, is it Ursa Creed? Ursula Creed, sorry, Ursakar's daughter. Do we see any competitive play for her, do we think?
So I'm not too sure about her at the moment, but what I'm quite interested in the fact is that she can give, when she issues an order, the direct recipient of that order gets +1 strength. But then again, you're thinking straight away, Kasserkin. And what's quite important to note with orders, obviously, is what we're saying is it's the last order that they can receive that is the one that they use. So you could have 3 units that you all want to have the same order, but you're like, I want to give them all +1 strength. So in this instance, let's say we've got 3 Kasserkin squads buying a building. You could give 1 squad first rank fire. You could give 1 squad suppressing fire, but then decide I want them all to have take aim, and then give the middle squad take aim and splash take aim onto the other 2. And so now they've all got the order that you wanted to, but now they've all got +1 strength. So that's a way to get around the fact that they can't issue the same order more than once.
Oh, okay.
So that's a way you can give all your spicy hotshots +1 strength.
That's cool.
She's 80 points, so she has got 3 orders, but it's one of the things that I'm kind of getting used to is having to issue orders at 6 inches, because you can't just stand next to a radio guy anymore and just talk through the squad's radio. You just don't get to do that. You have to be a command squad, and you have to have a master box, and that's the only way to use the radios. So it's I think Creed is good, but I'm still working it out, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. I like that. The +1 strength of weapon is pretty sweet. And yeah, and hot shots are strength 4, is that right? So I'll take them up to 5.
They're strength 3, but they go up. Hot shot last guns themselves are strength 3, so going up to strength 4 is pretty big. Because, you know, that's when you start wounding Marines in 4s, you're wounding T7 vehicles in 5s, and if you've got rerolls, you know, that's where it becomes pretty. That's where you start escalating, especially if you've got full rerolls. And Cadian Castellan, you know, he's 30 points cheaper. He has 1 less order. He doesn't have the +1 strength thing. Has 1, but I don't know. I think you run 1 Castellan at the minute. I'm not too sure what I would drop in my list to take Creed. But you know, it's early days. It's early days. But I do think commanders are very well balanced. And the commanders that have the Cadian keyword plus Lord Solar are balanced.
No. Okay. Right. I think there's in my head. Yeah, I think there's probably 4 more units I want to touch on before we kind of have a chat maybe about some strats and some lists. And that is, I want to talk about tanks because I love my tanks. I want to talk about Rough Riders. That's something that you have kind of discussed very lightly, but I want to kind of just get into them because again, new models, they look awesome. I want to see if are they any good as this fast moving kind of combat unit, which Guard have always kind of not had before. I do also want to pick your brain about Sentinels because that's something that you have said could have some play. And also they got a brand new model as well, so that's really cool. And then there was one other thing that I can't quite remember. No, I think that's about it. So I want to talk tanks, horses, and Sentinels. So let's do that. So which order would you prefer, Ryan?
Well, I'm on the Leman Russ right now in the book, so that right there. So I think the Leman Russ is probably the best unit in the book. Apart from, like, outside of the Kasserkin meme, like if you take it like from a wholesale just the data sheet for the points right now, I think that the Leman Russ is the best. It's a shame not having Armor Contempt anymore, but you know, I still remember when it was just a free up save. So you know, I won't complain. So all the guns have been pretty much boosted pretty substantially. Like the new base profile of the battle cannon is essentially just what Gatekeeper was in the Cadia supplement without the plus chaos.
Really nice, yeah. Flat 3 damage is beautiful.
Well, that's one of the things that I quite like now is all the guns do have flatter damages as opposed to just when you were playing all Demolishers and it was just like pray that you do not roll a 1 or a 2. You know, like there was so much swing because it's D6 shots and then D6 damage. It's just like.
Yeah, I was going to say you just roll the 1 or the 2 and the number of shots now. It's fine.
It's like, bro. So a couple of the guns that I quite like. So I'm sad to see that the time of the Demolisher is over. It's been a long run for the Demolisher, but I think it's going to be retired for lists now because it's whilst it's now got flat damage, it's only got D6 shots, and because you can't get an easy way to reroll, we can't even get a way to reroll shots outside a CP. It's just not worth it. It's better to take things like what I think is the best gun in the book for the Leman Russ is the Executioner Plasma Cannon. So what you've got with that is you've got a 36-inch gun that's got D6 shots plus 3, so you know you've got a minimum 4 shots, which is still alright. You know, you're looking at probably having 7 shots roughly, which is what you were kind of getting with Grind Advance before if you didn't have rerolls. And basically you're going to be overcharging, but really when you're overcharging you'll be Strength 8 -4 flat 3 damage, which is just like the premium profile, I think, for killing Terminators, which are pretty prevalent. And an AP4 is just great in Earthroom because you're forcing invulnerable saves. You don't really care if people have cover because it's so high. Whereas the battle cannon is flat 3 damage as well, strength 8, but it's only AP2, and if you're a Marine in cover, that's just AP nothing.
Yeah, it's not going to cut it there. No, I really like that. I think when I played Guard and it was tank commanders, I just always took them with the Executioner plasma cannons, to just get that reliability of the high AP. I think through, which was huge. Yeah.
Yeah, no, like back in Olbic, I probably wouldn't have run it as an Executioner plasma cannon. I don't know when you ran them, but just a lot of things seem to have -1 damage these days. It's just like.
Oh god, I mean. I was playing these back in like 7th, probably 7th going into 8th, so there was like no -1 damage anyway. Like these were the best things. But no, that's good.
It's like rough when it's 1 damage in your big scary tank.
Yeah, no, it's not ideal.
But yeah, no, I think the Luminous is pretty strong for its points because it is. What's the points of the tank now? It's the Luminous tank is 150 points, but you've got to take your front bolter like minimum. So you're 155 points for a stock tank. When your toughness 8 with a 2-up save, 13 wounds, and some pretty substantial guns. You're hitting on freeze because of turret with an important gun.
Yeah.
And you can't be tagged anymore, which is massive. And all the sponsons are a lot cheaper now as well, which is pretty good.
That's what I was about to ask is, are we taking these just stock standard with turret weapon bolter, or are we going sponsons? Are we going las cannon front, flamer front?
I've been running all my tanks with triple bolters at the minute, but I don't know, I think I'm kind of debating whether to go to triple flamers and just run them as fireball tanks, and just probably be more aggressive with them. But I don't know. I don't think you go for meltas, because you're hitting on 4s. Like it was already. Like I would run meltas sometimes on a tank commander because you were hitting freeze back in the old book, but in this one your sponsons are hitting on 4s, so I just don't think it's worth it. And then, I think it's bolters and flamers at the minute. A last cannon, maybe. It's kind of hit or miss. I don't think you should really, I think triple bolters, because it gives you triple bolters or triple flamers because it gives you 2 different things. Your big gun's the big hitter, and then you've just got some spray to shoot chaff with.
Yeah, no, that sounds ideal. Yeah, I did again. I used to like running triple flamers just as a don't charge me threat, because they could just rinse that unit that wants to come and tag them, just take them off. The other thing that I've just spotted here as well is armored tracks. It used to be not a great rule, was it not? Like it just meant that their movement never degraded when they took damage, but now it's giving you basically +1 to your save against damage 1 weapon, which is pretty cute.
Well, one thing is to just remember though is it's only ranged attacks. If it was against all attacks, that'd be great.
Cool.
Attacks. It just means though if you're getting sprayed with bolters, you're pretty much just not getting phased by them. The dozer blade, it's free, so you might on a Lehman Russ anyway, so you might as well take it. But that stops you taking movement penalties to your move, charge, and advance rolls. So it's free. But armor tracks is pretty good. Now I would take it on the tanks just to mess with harass fire, and then it's because Lehman Russes have access to a stratagem for 2 CP to reduce damage by 1. So if you're getting smashed with a lot of autocannon profile, or something that's just damage 2 or a lot of volume, you're just like, well, you're damage 1 now, and now I get +1 save.
Yeah, no, that's ideal. I like that. I like that a lot. What about? Let's talk about the big boy, and we don't mean the you know, the Bane Blades and what have you. I'm talking about the Rogel Dorn. Where is he? Where is he? Is that him? No, I've missed him.
Age
Where
of
is he?
Mind?
Let's have a look, see if I can actually find him. Oh, good lord, this book just seems like it goes on forever. But yeah, talk to me while I kind of try and find it on here. Talk to me about Rogel Dorn, because he was getting quite a lot of excitement coming out the gate, because obviously brand new model, really cool tank. Do we think we see this competitively?
I'm not too sure yet. I've not ran a Rogaldorn because I don't have a suitable proxy yet, as it's not out.
Yeah.
But it's a hefty boy. It's got it's toughness 9, which is big. It's got 17 wounds.
Yeah.
And it's got a pretty decent set of guns that I can choose from. The way I've kind of seen myself looking at the Rogaldorn is actually using it to hold an objective if I was to do an armoured superiority detachment.
Okay.
I've not really, because I've not really had a chance to play it, I don't know if it's good or not, but the way I've seen it is it would count as 5 models. You'd put it on the objective, you'd make it OPSEC. If it gets tagged, you don't care, you'll just shoot it out of combat anyway. And then what you do is you have your Rough Riders waiting in reserve, ready to just pounce out and clear whatever's touching them.
Cool.
Because I believe that whilst it's 250 points for the tank, I think you're probably going to need to put something that's more than 250 points to kill the tank. And what's also you've got to be wary about when you're killing tanks in the new guard book is the tanks can shoot on death for a CP.
Oh, no way. Cool.
So you get a stratagem called Vengeful Salute, and you're allowed to shoot your main gun out of combat. Ballistic skill 5 you count as, but because turret weapon you're now +1 to hit. So if you get shot by something, you can shoot back, or if you get killed in combat, you can shoot somewhere else, and just it adds another layer of what people have got to think about when they're moving. Because potentially be aggressive with your tank, shoot something, and then be like, well, kill me, and I'll just get to shoot again anyway.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm looking at the weapon profiles here. Presser cannon, that seems pretty decent. The heavy D6 +3 shots. So again, we're averaging maybe 6 or 7 shots. Strength 10, -3, flat 4 damage, and because it's the turret weapon, he's hitting on 3s, right?
Yep, +1 to hit.
Wow, nice. And yeah,
Want to go?
What was that? Sorry.
I think the Presser cannon is the one to go for. The twin battle cannon just looks a bit too swingy for me, and it just doesn't seem to have that many more shots. So you've got 2d6 shots, so you might get 12, but then if you max the shots on the Oppressor cannon, you're getting 9, but you're getting 3 less shots if you roll max on both of them, but for that 3 less shots you're getting +2 strength and +1 damage, which is pretty important. And in some matchups that's pretty huge. If you're playing into Death Guard, you're picking up those Terminators with 1 shot as opposed to 2.
Yeah.
Because -1 damage. Whereas the battle cannon's down to 2, so that needs to put 2 failed saves into kill a guy. So I think cannon's all the way. I'm not too sure if you put all the goodies on it, like the multi-melters and stuff like that, because it's already quite expensive.
Yeah.
And it's not like people aren't going to struggle to kill it. It's just you want them to put something into it significant so that you can then trade back, hopefully, a better.
Yeah.
Hopefully, between shooting on death and then killing whatever killed it, you've made that better trade. But I'm going to have to wait until I can actually get some kind of model to represent it, and then get out. It's a different way to play it. It's T9's interesting. It is interesting.
T9, 17 wounds, the magic number of best wounds, right? Because you can be obscured.
if you've got I think if I was running the Rogue Dawn, I'd be running a Primaris Psyker to give it the trans hitman, and that really starts to throttle what's going through. And if you've got like a big squad of multi-melta guys, you're hitting them 4s now. Well, that's half your shots away. You're winning them 5s. It's not ideal.
No, I like that, and nice we know to be combos as well. There, I like because I have heard a few things about the psychic powers and how that can, you can obviously use that to debuff for quite good. So trans hit is awesome. Let's move on to Sentinels because they're just the page above, or for you just the page back. So we got new models. I believe it was so Scout Sentinel, Armoured Sentinel, and you were chatting before stream about how you think that maybe people could be sleeping on these. So take it away, Ryan. What's your thoughts?
So the way I see it is if Born Soldiers gets kind of nerfed in a way and Armoured Superiority becomes maybe the go-to, I see Armoured Sentinels becoming effectively the troops of the army. So if you look at like the regular infantry squad, which is 65 points because you're going to be taking the Cadian shock troops the vast majority of the times. For 40 or 45, you've got to stick a chainsaw on it, which is actually pretty good now. You're getting, instead of 10 T3 wounds, you're getting 7 at T6 with 3 up save. So for 20 guardsmen, you could have a squad of 3 sentinels that could be OBSEC and count as 9 models.
Yeah.
And then the good thing about the armor sentinel is it's got the armored cockpit rule. So if a ranged attack with a damage characteristic of 1 is allocated to it, you get +1 save. So you're now saving on a 2-up against damage on weapons that don't have any AP. But then that also goes in with the -1 damage stratagem because they have the armored keyword.
Yeah.
And then you can stick things like trans hitman on them, the 5-up invulnerable safe from the spell or the tech priest. So I think the armored sentinels become like the troops. I think you can pick and choose what weapon you want in them. The plasma can is obviously interesting because it's free. A lot of plasma shots because they're platoon and they're core, and also they've got the squadron keyword. They've got all the keywords. They can receive a lot of different orders. So because they're core as well, they can benefit from reroll ones to hit from the Castellan, reroll ones to wound from the command squad. They can get the rerolls from Lord Solar. So there's ways to amp up their damage quite a lot. They can ignore modifiers from the relic banner, which allows you to ignore phase caps. So there's ways to make them pretty strong. And then Scout Sentinels, I think they provide something that was quite important was quite lacking in Guard in the last book, which was ways to just make people stand off. Because what would be the case, so in the old book you had Gaunt's Ghosts was the only unit that could forward deploy normally. You could take Rattlings, but they could only go 18 inches away from enemy units or the enemy deployment zone, which was, I can move 6 inches, so I might as well just had a pre-game move. And then the old Scout Sentinel rule was a pre-game move, but you couldn't go within 9 inches of the enemy units, so they could box you in if they had forward deploy, especially if they wanted to drop like a drop pod in. But now you actually want to win the roll-off to deploy first, so that you can get your Scout Sentinel down and start making some breathing space. And then you get your forward deploy from your Scout Sentinel, so you can stop things like drop pods coming in, and then you can even redeploy them as well if you're taking the Warlord trait to keep them safe. But one game that I used them in pretty well in the ELG tournament game that I've been playing was against Blood Angels, and one of the scariest things for Guard is just a super hyper fast melee army, and every Blood Angels player probably has at some point done the whole thing where they take all the Death Company and I'm going to pre-game move them up the board and then just charge a turn 1. But because he had no forward deploy, the Sentinels were just there, and there was no capacity for him to use Forlorn Fury because he can't end up within 9 inches of the enemy unit.
Yeah.
So that just negated that. So yeah, I think
really
Scout Sentinels are really...
No, I like that. And I like, yeah, and then I like just this theme of that these little walkers can be your effective troops. Marshall Croc in the chat there, he's definitely on board with that, and he likes that idea. Perfect. Right, so one last unit I want to discuss, and luckily it's just on the previous page again, is brand new and improved, hopefully, Attilan Rough Riders. So what's your thoughts on these, Ryan?
I think these are pretty excellent for what they do, but there's hoops you've got to jump through to deliver these, and that's what makes them not as scary as people were kind of getting hyped up about when they first got kind of when the profile kind of got showed off, because people were like, oh, they can one-shot knights when they're fully buffed and all that. But one of the key before we go through the profile, one of the key things to note about these guys is they're not infantry. They can't breach walls. They've got the cavalry keyword, so they need to walk around buildings. If you've ever had to move a vehicle around a building, you lose a lot of movement if you've got to go around a building. That's why they have to be fast. That's why they've been given the rules to ignore modifiers to movement. But what we'll do is we'll just go through the profile first. So the good thing about them is they hit them freeze in combat, because guardsmen now punch like space marines for some reason. They're strength 4 because sitting on a horse just makes you strong as a space marine. Same with how tough they are. Quite weird. They've got 2 wounds, 2 attacks, and a 4-up save. Sergeant obviously having +1 leadership and +1 attack. And then what it is they have a weapon called the Hunting Lance, and you can choose between 2 profiles in these, so it's just quite good because it gives you a bit of flexibility. So you've got the frag tip, which allows you to have the strength user, which you would think would be strength 6, but on the charge you get +2 to your strength from saving momentum, so you're actually strength 6.
Nice.
But you've probably taken the fixed bayonets order, so you're actually AP2. And then whenever a hit is made with this weapon profile, a successful hit roll becomes 2 additional hits, so you get Tesla to hit, not Tesla in 6s, Tesla to hit. So you can get a lot of value out of the frags. But the most important, I think, which is probably the best, the melta tip. So that gives you a further +2 strength. So your guys are charging in now at strength 8 with -4, but it'll be -5 because you're giving them take fixed bayonets for a flat damage 3, which is a pretty spicy profile. And then one of the other ones to look at is the Goad Lance. So it's like the special weapon for the squad. And what's quite interesting about the way it's worded is what happens is each time an attack is made with this weapon, a successful hit roll. Each time an attack is made with this weapon, a successful hit roll scores 1 additional hit. Each time an attack is made with this weapon that is allocated to a vehicle model, that model suffers 1 mortal wound in addition to any normal damage. But the key phrasing of that word being each time this attack is allocated. So it's like you've not even had to roll a hit, you've just allocated the attack, and they've just taken 2 or 3 mortal wounds just for no reason if it's a vehicle. So that's probably some fact, probably immediately.
Yeah, I was going to say, so it's pretty nutty here because you would just allocate. So say you put this on the sergeant, right, and you just allocate 3 attacks to the vehicle, so it's doing 3 mortals in addition. Would that then stack with your additional hits that you get for just hitting?
Yeah, you would just play as normal, but because you're a vehicle, you do additional mortal wounds.
Wow. Okay. Wow. That's pretty nutty. Yeah. I could definitely see that getting toned down, maybe.
And then the Goad Lance itself, you'll be hitting with 3 attacks at strength 8 -3 2 damage. So it's you've got all that to look forward to after you've just taken for no reason.
Yeah, no, it's not nothing. And yeah, the melter tips are pretty cool. So the fact they can get up to strength 8 is awesome. These little these guardsmen on horseback in the 40k universe, it's so cool. Love
But
it.
with these Rough Riders, they're not the Vanguard veterans for Guard or whatever it is like that. They're not aggressive. Their units you use as a countercharge, absolutely 100%, because they can't go out there, sit in cover and be like, I've got a 2-up save now, with a storm shield or something like that. You know, somebody just looks at them with some bolters and they just die because they're T4-up save. And you know, they're 100 points for a squad of 5. 100 points will trade up if it connects with something, but it's delivering them. That's why I'm thinking of, you know, using them in conjunction with like an armored force to whatever touches them, try and dig the tank back out with the Rough Riders. Because 100 points can pick up what you would probably want to throw at a tank to kill it in one phase. It's
Awesome.
the Rough Riders.
Yeah. No, and I think you're spot on as well with that idea of a counter charge unit. They're a unit that you're not going to be flinging these guys forward, because at the end of the day they're only toughness to a T4 2 and 4-up save. Like, they're just going to get rinsed, absolutely rinsed. So yeah, you want to.
It's sad when you think like an intercessor's like the same points as this guy.
Yep, exactly. But yeah, I think keep these guys behind some cover, and then getting them out, and they can dig out that hard target in combat, take them off the point maybe, and free some stuff up. I like it. And the new models just look amazing as well, which is awesome. Okay, so that's all the units I was kind of wanting to have a good chinwag about, mainly just because a lot of them are new models. But also, I do think that they have some competitive play as well. Let's finish off. So we're nearing it. 1 hour 17. Let's wrap this up in the hour and a half. Let's go for talk us through a Ryan Cook list. So what regimental doctrine are you taking? What warlord trait? What relics, and what are the units in a list that you've kind of been or what you would want to take in a tournament list, do we think?
So right now, on my first K impressions, it's going to be Born Soldiers right now as it stands. That is, in my opinion, the most powerful, because it just has the options to have the damage fraud so high. So what I think you're probably looking for is, in your HQs, you're wanting at least 1 tank commander, maybe 2, depending on how many Leman Russ you're taking. With my first Leman Russ tank commander, I quite like to give them the Vanquisher cannon, because tank officers can't receive orders themselves unless from Lord Solar, but I'm not running Lord Solar at the minute because I don't have anything, like, it's not out yet, kind of thing. And what you can give him is the tank ace, and then he takes an additional trait, that one being the reroll a shot. You've only got one shot, so you've just given yourself a free reroll. And that really pays off on the Vanquisher cannon because it's got such low volume. So I think you take him. I think you take a Castellan or Ursula Creed right now, if you're not taking Lord Solar. And what you take on your officers for relics and warlord traits is, you take on the Castellan, I believe you take Master Tactician, so that you can have the redeploy, which is you can redeploy 3 units. Very important, so you can play things aggressively.
I like that.
And then for your command squad, because I believe we'll still have a inflexible command style secondary come the new edition. What I like to run them is the relic banner, the finial of the Nemru Desh, and what that does is gives you you ignore modifiers to your hit roll, so that allows your last guns to fire first rank, second rank, fire heavy weapons without taking the -1 to hit. You ignore dents, things like that, and the important thing is your core units ignore phase caps and feel no pains. So, you know, if a Baden wants to come out and stand in front of some Kassakin and just take it on the chin, you can't just walk your Catan up the field and just walk towards the gun line, because he's going to take more than three damage.
That is so cool, because that is one thing is that I think with guards you're always just like, right, so my Lehman Russes, so they're ballistic itself 4, but they're hitting on 3s with the turrets to get +1, thank God. And then you come up against Eldar or something like that, and they're just like, oh, be a nice one to hit, and you're like, alright, okay, so I'm back to 4s. Or yeah, you've got trans hit and stuff like that. Like, so this thing just making you ignore any modifiers to the hit roll is awesome.
Well, this is just it's for core
Right.
units. It'll only affect your sentinels that are vehicles and just your infantry, but it's most important your Kassakin. But it gives you a tool outside of having 3 phases of damage if you don't want to be running like Bulgrin and lots of psychic to be able to take down these things, because it was just one of those cases that if you weren't running Bulgrin, you'd be like, oh brilliant, I've just walked into a double Satan list and I have nothing I can do about this.
That's cool, but now you do. I think, yeah, so on that then, yeah, the being able to get around phase cap is the most exciting thing for me. That's awesome.
It's definitely that. And you ignore feel no pains, which is pretty potent as well.
Pretty tasty, yeah.
And then I think after that you take probably 60 infantry, 60 Cadian shock troops. I don't think you don't run, like, I see some people thinking you just run bare minimum 30, but I think you run about 60, unless you're taking it like sentinels, but that's something I've not really ran through yet. So I think it's 60 infantry now in the troops. Then it comes to the elite slot, and that's where you just take 30 Kassakin, because Kassakin are really good. And I think what you do is you take the +4 inch regiment trait on the first squad that you give the Barbican's key, because that allows you to rapid fire. That allows you to rapid fire outside of deep strike. Auspex scan if you want to take like the plasmas and such. But if you're just going to go all last guns, you take the ignores cover. The ignores cover regiment trait, and then I like to take on the third squad the pre-game move, because what you can do is you can hide behind a bit of terrain. If there's something exposed, you can pre-game move out, and then you're stationary at the start of the game, and then you have access to the shoot twice stratagem.
Alright, okay. So see, taking these different regimental doctrines on each of these squad of 10 Kassakin, are you able to do that even though you're born heroes? Is that something that Kassakin can do?
The Kassakin have a special rule where they can take an additional trait, and you can't double. You've got to take different ones. So they've got a rule called, Warrior Elites. So when you add this unit to your army, you can select one doctrine from the pages 60 and 61 that no other unit from your army has, and then that has that in addition to what you've already taken. And so it allows you to kind of take them out for different jobs.
Yeah.
Some people quite like the idea of running them with the mechanised infantry so that they can jump out of a transport even if after it's moved. So there's different ways to. It gives you some more tools.
That's awesome. I love that. That's so, again, and so narrative for the Kassakin, because they are the elite shock troops, so they should have like more more training like for them. Okay, it's cool. So 30 Kassakin, right? What's up next?
Fast attack, I quite like. So I've been running my units in a kind of brigade right now. Fast attack has been pretty full lately. So I've been running 2 to 3 scout sentinels, and then I've been running 3 squads of 5 rough riders, but I've dropped that down to 2 squads of 5, just to try and trim that down a bit, because I feel that 3 squads is too many, and I feel that 3 scout sentinels is maybe too many. I think you maybe just need 2, just a section of one part of the board, and then for heavy support, I think you just fill the rest of the detachment up with Lumen Russes. Give them armoured tracks, give them executioner plasma cannons, triple bolters, triple flamers, whatever you want.
Love it. And that's you?
That's currently me at the moment. But if I do get some more sentinels or something, I think the armoured superiority, a couple of tank commanders, and then I would run 3 scout sentinels, and then I'd run 3 squads of 3 armoured sentinels. Probably a tech priest and a Primaris Psyker to try and buff them up to make them quite durable. And then, there's different ways to run it, because I don't think people are really going to be keen to chuck what they need to kill a buffed squad of sentinels in order to kill them, because you'll just be able to trade up. I think for 120 points, when you're sitting there with toughness 6, 7 wounds, 3 up save, probably trans hitman on them, and a 5 up invulnerable save, they're pretty beefy.
That's not nothing. No, 100%. Yeah. No, I like it. Cool. So I like the base list, the core concept for me. I think very strong. I like it. The 310s of Kassakin, obviously awesome. We've already spoken about how good Kassakin are. I love the fact that you've filled out with the Lehman Russes. You've got some really nice relics in there with the command squad as well for that banner. Love it. Your 6 squads of infantry, which just gives you board presence, obsec, stuff like that. I think you're right. I think 310s is just not enough. I think you do need the 610s. I think that's probably where it's at. And yeah, I like it. And then 2 squads of Rough Riders, the Scout Sentinels for screwing up any opponent's pre-game moves and stuff like that. I think is awesome. So no, I really like it, man. I love the list. That's awesome. And then as you start to, when Lord Solar finally is kind of out properly, and then if you're starting to run him, or you run Ursula, or as you say, if you're taking into the armored sentinel kind of builds, that'd be really cool to see as well. So awesome, loving it. Right, I think we are probably about ready to wrap up, mate. So before we do so, is there anything you think that we have missed, or anything that's kind of jumped to your mind that you thought, oh, I might just kind of say that thing to before we kind of wrap this thing up?
Actually, I'll probably make a mention. Probably my favourite stratagem from the book.
Go for it.
It's probably got to be acceptable losses. So what this allows you to do is it gets around another annoying things that guards struggled with in the old book was when things got wrapped, like your sentinels, like your infantry. And what it allows you to do is select one of your units. It allows you to shoot into a combat with units that have the platoon keyword. So that'll be all your infantry, your Rough Riders or Sentinels, because they have the platoon keyword. It just allows you to shoot in the combat with them. So the way this came up pretty decently for me in a game is I was playing against the Black Templars, and one guardsman was left alive, and he was tri-pointed by some blade guard, and then I just my tank and just shot in a combat. And then what it is if you roll a hit roll of a 1, you're not allowed to re-roll your hit rolls when you use the stratagem.
Okay.
If you roll 1, you have to resolve that attack against the guardsman.
But you don't care. But you just don't care about.
And in this particular situation, I actually wanted the guardsman to die, and I did end up killing him, which then broke those blade guard out of combat and allowed the rest of my army to shoot into them.
Yes, love it.
So yeah, no, that's the important thing I think about guard is they've just got a lot more tools now to overcome the things that were quite problematic for them in the old book, which was being tagged, being tagged and just not having any answer in close combat.
Mm-hmm. No, love it. That's great. I've got one last question before we kind of sign off here, and this is from Marshall Croc. Thanks, Marshall. So he's asking, what matchups worry you with the new book?
What matchups? I'm trying to think. What? I've not played an Eldar yet.
Okay.
Any of the kind of elf type factions where they're fast and mobile, and it's one of the ones that I'm kind of worried about because they can pick and choose the engagements. Whereas before, when I was running my old book Cadians, I didn't care because it was just like you can hide wherever, but I'm just going to chuck all the mortars on you. Well, I've not actually had a particularly hard matchup yet because I've only had 4 games, but I do see that these fast mobile armies like Eldar are being quite difficult. But that's one of the things as well is we don't really need the indirect as much now because we're a lot faster. Being the tanks can move 10 inches now, and they've got longer range and things like that. But yeah, I would definitely say that on face value, I think it's definitely those Eldar factions.
I could certainly see some light Harlequins boats ruining Guards Day potentially. Yeah.
Light Harlequins could be pretty difficult. But I choose to think that with my old list that Harlequins was quite a favourable matchup for me because you were like, well, I'm hitting on 4s anyway with all my mortars. And then if anything came out of the transports, it just died the next turn till the mortars.
Yeah.
But Harlequins could be pretty difficult.
Yeah.
For sure.
Agreed. No, perfect. Well, thank you very much, guys. Thanks for the questions. Been loving the live chat interaction again, so thank you for that. And been loving your thoughts, mate, on the new book. I know we were never going to get through absolutely everything, but I think we've done quite well picking out some of the key points, the key parts of the books. I'm really excited to see New Guard on the table, so I can't wait for them to actually get like the proper release. But thank you so much for being on the stream tonight. Your thoughts have been invaluable, and I'm sure you'll do really well with the guys. One thing I did want to say was, which I didn't previously mention at the start, was that Ryan, obviously you're a member of Shire Knights. Yeah. I also had one of your teammates on. I had Alan on. I can't remember if it was last week or a couple of weeks ago. And we had a really nice bat rep there. So it's good to see another knight getting some representation on the channel. I have put the link to your Facebook page in the video description as well, so if anyone wants to go and check that out. But in essence, you guys are a 40k kind of gaming club based in Falkirk, I believe.
Yeah, that's absolutely it.
Yep.
We play most Thursdays, and people are more than welcome to try and to contact that and find out if they come along on Thursdays at 6. It starts at 6 o'clock. You've got a game of 40k. The best way to get into it is to join the Discord and put your name, your hat, and your name in the ring. The first time you turn up, it is free, but then after that, we all contribute, towards the upkeep of the club and obviously renting the venue.
Yeah.
It's a good way to play 40k on the regular, and a lot of us do look at the more competitive side of 40k, but it's definitely not in a sweaty way in any way. If anything, I think it's the best way to play is competitive 40k.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree, and don't get me wrong, it's not that I don't like narrative play or casual play or whatever, but I do think that I certainly get a lot more enjoyment playing more competitive lists and things like that, and really kind of getting a lot of the juice out the kind of the rule system and things like that. And by all accounts, you guys are a good competitive team, and you all individually do well at tournaments as well. So it's really great to see for the community, and just for Scotland as well. You guys are putting in the reps, which is fantastic. So well done to you, yeah. So I think that's us, mate. So I'm just going to say a massive thank you to everyone. So thanks for watching. If you haven't already, folks, please make sure that you have clicked like, and also that you have subscribed to the channel. It helps me out immensely. Again, thank you to the sponsors of the channel as well. Thanks to my patrons as well, which are all on screen just now. And one last thank you to you, Ryan. Thank you so much for coming on and having a chat with me, mate.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Not at all. No, it's been, the pleasure has been all mine. I love talking guard and tanks and everything. So no, it's been really good. So yeah, I think that's us, mate. We're just going to sign off there. And yeah, please make sure to tune in next time, guys. Our kind of or my kind of channel content for December's kind of just starting to wrap up now, in preparation for the new year. And we'll have some new stuff in the new year. I'd love to get a stream game with you, Ryan, with the new guard codex once it gets its proper kind of release, and once GW says it's okay for tournament play and whatever. So if we could get that set up for the new year, that would be fantastic, mate.
Yeah, that'd be magic. I'd be totally up for that.
Awesome. Cool. Right, well, I'll say goodnight then, folks, and thank you so much again, and please make sure to tune in next time and answer the call. Okay, thanks for that, folks. See you later.